Australia's long-standing housing shortage is making homes unaffordable. The reforms in this budget will lift our total investment in housing to a record $47 billion. We're levelling the playing field for first home buyers with 5% deposits, and tax reform will invest another $2 billion in the power, roads and drains that we need for new housing development.
Well, the federal budget's just been released and apparently it's the budget for first home buyers. So let's try and drill down here, because I heard the budget the other night, or the next day actually, and what I thought to myself after hearing that budget was, this has got nothing to do with first home buyers, and more importantly, I don't think it's going to change much to the property market. Everyone's going on about, oh, this is going to ruin everything for everyone, but let's dig into it. My name is Will, I'm a mortgage broker. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I don't really sugarcoat the economy or the property market or anything like that. I'm pretty real about it, and I think a lot of what I've said has been vindicated in the last year or so. I feel like more and more people are coming onto the same page. Yes, it is hard for young people these days. With that said, let's take a look at what the changes are in the budget. Firstly, what I want to do is take you over a few stats, because if you're watching this, you're probably a first home buyer. The statistics tell the story more than the news. The reason I like statistics is because it just cuts out all of the crap on the news. From the census of 2001 to the census of 2021, home ownership rates for people aged 25 to 34, which is traditionally first home buyers, went from 51% to 44%. What does that tell you? It tells you a lot less people are getting into home ownership between ages 34 and 25. The reason why that is increasing, by the way, is because people are getting into debt later on in life. They're buying their properties later, and that is because property markets keep going up and they are unaffordable for younger people. Another interesting fact, same censuses, we're talking about outright home ownership. So people that own their homes without mortgages between ages 54 and 65, it might be 55 and 64. 2001, the outright home ownership, I want to say, was 65%. And as of 2021, that outright home ownership rate was 36%. So I'm not trying to scare people by pointing out these facts. I'm trying to tell people a story that's based on reality. That's 20 years worth of data there. And what it's telling you is that it's harder for people to buy properties. So this is the dynamic of what's happened over the last 20 or 30 years. And the system is tilted overwhelmingly to those with money compared to those who haven't got money. So it's much harder for people on the bottom to claw their way up into home ownership and to buy assets. So that brings us on to why the change in the budget. We're talking negative gearing, we're talking capital gains tax discounts. And basically, this is meant to even up the playing field. And I'll grant that this is better. It will even it up in some way, shape or form. But I don't think the overall effects on the property market are going to mean too much. Let's dig into negative gearing. What is negative gearing? Okay, I'm going to give you a very basic example. So don't have a go at me for leaving stuff out here. So negative gearing in property, an investor buys a rental property, the rent does not cover their costs. So the income, which is the rent, is less than all of the costs. The mortgage repayments, or the mortgage interest, I should say, insurance, water, council rates, strata costs, property managers, all of those costs, if the costs are more than what the rent is, well then property investors get to claim that back as a tax deduction. So let's say that property is losing 20 grand a year and you're earning 100 grand a year in your job. Because it's losing 20 grand a year, you can claim that back. So rather than getting taxed on that 100 grand you made, you're only going to get taxed on that 80 grand you made. So anyway, this is really attractive to investors, and that pushes people to invest in property and helps fuel demand into the property market at the cost of, you got it, first home buyers. So the capital gains tax, what has that been? Basically what that is when an investor buys an asset, so in this case a property, if they own it for more than 12 months and then sell it, or whatever profit they make, they're only taxed on 50% of that profit. So that obviously favors the property investor there. So what these two policies have contributed to is there being more investors than owners of their own homes in the property market. So if you look at this graph here, we can see that over a long period of time, the percentage of owner occupiers has dropped and it's increased. We can see in 2015 and 2017, APRA cracked down on investors because there were so many getting into the market at that time. They made it harder for people to borrow money to invest, And you can see the amount of owner-occupiers start increasing up until about the COVID times when interest rates dropped to basically nothing, and it just was a green light for property investors. Okay, so I'm going to start speeding things up now. Basically, it's been a green light for property investors, and that has been at a cost to homeowners. That means property prices have gone up. So the government's got to do something. They've got to make some changes to the way investors are being rewarded to give first home buyers a break. So I think that's what they're saying by this is the budget for first home buyers. Anyway, what's happening is negative gearing is being wound back from July 2027 on existing property. So if you're losing money on properties purchased from now on existing properties after July 2027, you won't be able to claim that tax deduction. You won't get those perks. The only way you can claim those perks is if you're buying new property. That's going to be really interesting because there are a lot of investors out there, and are they going to crowd out the new property market and push land up more? I think probably that's what's going to happen once enough time passes and that supply gets soaked up. Not that there's that much supply already. Capital gains tax, that's been replaced. The 50% capital gains tax discount, which I just mentioned, has been replaced with the 30% minimum tax on the real gain. So that's accounting for inflation. What it means is that there's less incentive for property investors to buy property if we want to dumb it down. The government have also said they're going to splash out $2 billion in a fund to build more homes. What they're saying is that's going to basically provide the infrastructure for the new developments that are needed, and that's going to provide 65,000 extra homes over a period of 10 years. It sounds like a lot, but it probably doesn't cover the amount of extra immigration that we've got coming into the country over 1 year. So the government are trying to do these things. They're trying to provide these solutions, but they're saying, hey, don't look over there with the population growth because we don't have any actual solutions for that. The population growth that we're providing is a solution to a failing economy. If you want to look more upon that, you can check out some of my other videos. And change number 4, the foreign buyer ban extends to 2029. I looked into this a couple of years ago. As far as what I could tell is the foreign buyer influence on the market in terms of total demand wasn't really that much. And if you look at the amount of additional immigrants again that are coming into this country, it's probably creating more demand on the market. So again, probably just tinkering at the seams. So let's just summarize what the government are actually doing. They're putting in $2 billion for local infrastructure. They're putting in $2 billion for boosting home ownership package, and they're putting in another $5 or $6 billion for an extra 100,000 homes for first home buyers. Again, over a period of 10 years, I believe. So an additional $10 billion, it sounds like a lot. Our federal government are $1 trillion in debt. So that's 1,000 billion. So I look back at it and go, well, if you want to throw money at this problem, I don't agree that this is the right way of doing it. But if you wanted to throw money at a problem like building roofs over people's heads, which I would argue is a fairly fundamental thing you should be wanting to do as a government, you should be throwing more at that problem because it's going to get worse. I think everyone's on the same page there. Okay, so what is available to first home buyers right now? Okay, so they're extending the 5% deposit scheme. Here's a pretty little graph of what you would need to provide under the older rule of getting 20% plus your costs to buy your first home. You can see there it's pretty much impossible for most first home buyers to achieve. And under the first home guarantee, the little orange one there is the amount of deposit you would need to buy your first home. At whatever the amounts are there, just note some states will charge you a level of stamp duty, so that's going to vary. There's the Help to Buy scheme. The federal government pitches in 30 to 40% for an existing home. Yes, conditions do apply there. And this extra $5.9 billion that we talked about before, they're basically not really giving too much detail behind that, but they're giving money to the states and territories to do things to provide supply into the market. So make what you will of that. I guess it depends on how much you trust your politicians to do the right thing there. A lot of money, but we seem to be spending a lot of money of late. There is an uncomfortable truth about government spending, especially around property. And if you follow my stuff, you'd know this. All of this spending to get first home buyers in the market is a solution to a problem that we caused, which is rising house prices. And we're not actually doing anything to address the rising house prices. What we're actually doing is saying, hey, you first home buyer, we're going to get you into the market early. which is great for that first home buyer, that generation of first home buyers. But what it's inevitably doing is putting more demand into a market where there's already more demand than supply of homes. So it's pushing house prices up. The good part of it, if you're a first home buyer right now, is that it gives you an opportunity to get into the market now. But the flip side of it is it's not good in total because it's going to push house prices higher. So the $64 billion question here is it going to make houses more affordable? Is it going to push prices down for first home buyers? I don't think so. Obviously, time's going to tell on that one though. Here's the thing. Investors still need to invest. Most investors aren't just greedy billionaires. The greedy billionaires aren't buying individual properties. They're spending their money in different ways. Most families need to invest. They need to look after their children because housing is going to be unaffordable there. So people need to invest and they are going to try to figure out how to buy property. So all of these changes don't change the fact that people need to invest. It just means things are more complex. So middlemen like financial planners, accountants, mortgage brokers, we're going to get more work because we're going to be helping people navigate these difficult things, and people are still going to be finding ways of buying property. Now, whether that affects the demand so much that creates a reversal of things where there's more property in supply than what there is demand, time will tell. I clearly don't think so. If you took everything away and just left immigration the way it is, the answer is no. It's clearly no. It's very basic math. We cannot build the amount of houses we need now to house everyone. Property price is going to keep going up, in my opinion. When will we feel a difference? Again, same answer. It's just a piece of string. Does this mean the system is shifting for first home buyers? I don't know. I look at the overall system, and if you've watched my channel, the system is not swinging anywhere. The system is going in one place, and that is benefiting super wealthy people, politicians, bureaucrats, corporations. It's not favoring the little guy. If you actually look at this budget, it could be seen as a way for, well, you're just repressing the little guy more. You're stopping them from innovating. You're stopping them from investing because these capital gain taxes means it's going to affect them more. I think the system is designed to favor wealthy people. First home buyers generally aren't wealthy people. That's where I stand on that topic. The question of is right now the right time to buy for first home buyers is something that is not easy to answer. That's generally a hard question at any time. Like every time has its challenges. And I've got a lot of empathy for first home buyers because we live in a system now where there's so much information and the news feed is impossible to get away from. And they're always conflicting. Every day you've got someone telling you to do something different and everyone's got an opinion. What I would encourage people to do is look at their own situation, look at what they need to happen in their lifetime and work to what is going to work for them. Sometimes that means buying now, sometimes it means not buying now. Whatever works for you, that would be my advice. Anyway, that's me for today. If you like this video, I've got a report. You can download that for free. It goes into basically everything I've just mentioned now. It's a little bit more formalized. And if you're a bit of a geek, there's all the references to budgets and ABS stuff there, all the fun stuff. If you do want to get into the market in 2026, and you do need help with it, and you want to chat with someone, an experienced professional who's not going to try and ram some debt down your throat, I'm all ears. My links are in the description. Cheers.